Alright. Woo! The last bit of coffee, and that's good because this is my last video of the day. I fucking filmed like 10 of them already. Shit. I need caffeine. Now I need water. Alright. What's up, y'all? Thanks for hanging out for a bit. Now, in this video I want to explain something that me and Paul usually fight over. And Paul like always calls me out and says I'm worthless and shit. And then I politely tell him to go fuck himself. But yeah, it's basically auto settings on the camera, right? Okay, I'm kidding. No, for the most part, like we try to get like the best image possible out of the camera, right? Bigger YouTubers that are really high production. I'm talking about Linus, you know, Tech Tips, and any other major YouTuber that has a very high quality image of just crispiness of their footage. A lot of them, they film on RED cameras, right? Now the thing about RED cameras is, well, one, they're fucking expensive, but the thing about RED cameras is that, you know, just like a camera that you have like the settings, right? You can adjust the ISO, the shutter speed, those values are you're able to adjust in the camera before you start filming. With the RED camera, all those settings are still able to be adjusted in post-production, right? If you edit RED footage inside of Premiere Pro, you actually get exposed to a different like menu that's not available for your regular, you know, footage, right? You do get like a completely separate menu that just pops up when you start editing with RED, because you are basically editing the footage itself within itself, which is kind of weird, right? When you're editing like footage inside of like Premiere Pro from like a regular camera, say from like your phone or whatever, that image is already rendered out, it's flat. You only can work with whatever like the camera that you use has caught, right? But fucking like RED footage, you get like a different menu where you are able to like adjust, like I said, like the ISO, tint, the Kelvin, like the temperature of like the room or whatever. You can actually adjust all that in post-production, right? So it's almost as if you have like the camera in your hand and you can make the adjustments in real time within Premiere Pro, right? It's pretty neat. Yeah, there's a lot of cool options that you have available using RED footage, right? So anyways, the point I bring that up is that we don't use RED footage. Basically, we use like a higher end consumer grade camera, right? And it works pretty good, right? However, the thing with me is that when we're filming, something that I prefer to do is like I usually set the camera to auto. Pretty much it like does everything for me. It does, you know, and it's a lot easier, right? And after a while me like messing with that footage, I actually learned how to like color correct footage that uses the auto settings, right? And like there's something about it, I guess, like I don't see much YouTube tutorials about, so I'm gonna show you like how to like work with it, right? The reason why I like to set the camera in auto is simply because, you know, we move around a lot, right? And like everything's very unpredictable, and it's also like we don't have the time to sit around and fuck with the camera to adjust the tint and the fucking ISO, the shutter speed and all that shit. If we had like a dedicated camera guy that knows how to do this shit quick, then it'd probably be a lot easier, but you know, it's just me and Paul, right? So for the most part, for me, I put the shit on like on auto, right? So here's a situation where like having the camera on auto is beneficial, right? Here's the long shot, you know, you have like the windows, the background, everything's in focus, you know, the camera is set to auto, right? Now he walks in here, you know, pans over to like this. As you can see, like the color information is all over the place, right? But I'll get to that in a bit. If he goes back to the inside of the PC, if you can kind of see here, you can also see in this information over here. See, I'll remove myself. You can see it's kind of dark, right? Because this is the inside of the PC, right? But as he stays there inside of the computer, you can see like the information value increase, right? Because the camera adjusts itself to increase the interior of the PC case, right? As you can see here, like everything went, the value just went up, right? Let me back up a bit. Just keep an eye on this wave pattern right here. See, it's dark, get closer, and it auto adjusts, right? Even the color, you can see is how it's kind of red. You see here, you know, see more red. Now if you get closer, it gets more blue. See, there's less red, there's more blue, and in here, right? Now, when it comes to color correcting footage that has like the auto setting, there is a bit of a trick to it, right? I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but it's something that I guess I learned to mess with, right? All right, so in this example, this footage is set to manual, right? We adjust like the settings. All right, now, right away, you can see like there's like a lot more detail in the head and other good stuff, right? So yes, I'm not gonna deny the fact that there's benefits to using manual mode to the camera, right? There is details that you are able to like preserve by setting it to manual, right? Because you have a visual on what you want to be properly exposed, right? But as you see here in the information, for most part, like say Paul's hand, see it's right here, like in the midst, right? Everything is somewhat a little bit dark. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's a little bit dark. Whereas like if we go back to like the footage, everything is blown the fuck out, right? It's very bright, right? This is like the, see like the finger, you know, very bright. So you see like the color information, it's way up here, right? It's almost touching to like the top of like of our waveform meter here, right? Same thing if we go back to our footage that's standard, as you can see here, everything's a bit lower, right? So we have to boost this up. You can just maybe crank up the exposure a little bit to make everything a bit brighter. You know, and then like, you know, you start doing your color correction, right? Now here's like the main trick about like adjusting footage that's set to auto. Now the white balance is always going to be changing and this and that, right? So keep in mind that, yeah, you cannot spend way too much time color correcting footage that was set to auto, right? Because it's going to be constantly changing. It's going to, like I showed you, it's pretty red here, right? The footage, you can see the red. And then as you move forward, now it's more blue, right? See, there's less red. So you spending a lot of time doing like image adjusting the reds or the blues or whatever, there's really no point to do that, right? The main thing you want to do actually is basically you want to adjust the highlights of the footage, right? Now, like I said, with footage that's set to manual, you can actually have the chance to actually increase this to brighten it up a bit more, right? I usually don't use the exposure that much, but I'm trying to make an example, right? You can crank this up to make it brighter, right? So instead of being like dark, you can make it bright. With footage that's set to auto, see what the camera does is like it basically tries to like push everything up evenly so everything appears to be bright. So instead of being dark where you have to push everything up using the exposure level, you can actually do the opposite with footage that's set to auto. I'm using Paul's hand here as an example. See how everything is pushed up? What we want to do is we want to push everything back down a bit, right? So if I select this, I'm going to go to my Lumetri color grade here. So there's two things I can do. One, I can just grab either I can grab like say the exposure and I can crank this down a bit. I can do that. As you can see, if I put this back to normal, everything looks like it's pushed up here, right? But if I actually reduce the exposure a bit, there's still a little bit of like information like I'm able to salvage here in the highlights, right? So crank that down, you know, so that's one, right? Oh, that looks okay. You're able to like get the highlights, reduce this down a bit. And if you look at Paul's hand, as I'm reducing the highlights, you can see more information being like brought back to his hand, right? Now something you can do also is basically, if you want, you can bring up more detail. I can actually crank the shadows, but the shadows is more down this information. As you can see here, there's still a lot of information here within the shadows that you are able to bring up, right? So I can just boost up the shadows a bit. And already like that, you can see how much of the contrast, you know, everything's dark. And now look at that. You can actually see more detail now. Everything looks more even, right? So one thing I like to do is actually increase the contrast a little bit so it doesn't look as flat, right? We can increase the contrast a little bit. And that right there kind of like looks a little bit better. Now, when it comes to color correcting, like I said, when you're set to auto, it's going to change the white balance for you on the spot as you're moving around with the camera, right? So there's really no point of like messing around with the color correction that much. But something that I do is, for the most part, footage, there always is like a tint of green. So I actually take the tint, I'll increase a little bit, just to kill the green a little bit, you know? And sometimes I can increase the warmth a bit, just to bring up the reds a bit if I want. Or if you want more blue, then crank down the blues, right? Now this is looking a lot better, right? See that? This is like the raw. You can see the highlight, how bad it is. And then just like do a little adjustments, bring down the highlights, a little contrast, that looks way better, right? Now if it looks a little flat, you are able to like increase the saturation a bit, just to give it a little bit more life. Well, there you go. As you can see, like I said, like there's a lot of green information that camera footage usually has when you set to auto, right? So I just killed the green by adding some red and I added more blue. You know, I reduced the highlights, increased the shadows. This is looking way, way better, right? As you can see, it looks pretty good. And this is set to auto, right? So now when Paul is moving around, everything is already adjusted. See that? It looks already pretty good, right? So no matter where he's at, this looks good. It looks way better, right? Yeah, so learning to like color correct footage that with the camera set to auto, it's not that big of a deal, right? So if anything, I always prefer to work like this. It just looks good, right? Now with DaVinci Resolve, like it's pretty much the same thing. Yeah, same thing, right? So you have like the Lumetri scopes here, you have highlights over here. You know, you want to maybe bring this down. So maybe you can bring down the exposure now of like the highlights a little bit. You have options here, which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's easier to jump around, so say if like, you know, the light. This is the high dynamic range, by the way, the settings. You know, you can adjust the shadows that you want and basically, so where's the shadows? I can just increase the exposure if I want, make it a little bit brighter. You can do that. And then, you know, you can, I really like this feature that you're able to like select what you want to be shadows, right? Yeah, there's definitely more detail with DaVinci, obviously. And then like, you know, if you want, you can increase more contrast, you know, with this guy. got options here. Contrast, you want to add more a little tint, like I said, just to kill the green, add a little tint, maybe the temperature, make this more blue if you want, you know, and then like, you know, you already got a little bit of a change there. If the high dynamic range is like a little too much for you, you can actually you go to like the regular color wheels, you get your shadows, midtones, highlights, and offset. So that's kind of like just pretty simple. This is a lot simpler, right? You got the highlights here, so now you can just maybe just crank that down a bit if you want. You got the shadows, you know, you can boost that up if you want a little bit, you know. Probably add like a little bit of tint, you know, just to kill the green, like I said. Maybe go a little temperature, drop it down to blue, and then like I think there's a contrast. Yeah, there's a contrast here, just to add a little bit of contrast. So, you know, there you go. You know, that looks a little bit better. I guess increase the saturation a little bit just to give it more color, and you know, there you go. It's pretty good. See, this is like the raw, and this is the color corrected. You can see it looks a lot better, right? You see the auto settings in your camera, it's not bad, right? If anything, I prefer to use it in that manner, right? Because it does a good job of like actually retaining a lot of information. The only thing that like does mainly from when you use it in like the auto setting, it basically boosts everything up evenly, right? So that's the thing where you have to learn how to count and balance footage that's set to auto, right? You have to learn to boost everything down a bit, right? So you can like try to bring back like the color information, because since everything is boosted up, it looks like it's washed out, but actually there still is a lot of information there, right? You just like I said, you have to like bring down like the settings a little bit and like find like that balance and give it a little contrast so it looks good, right? So yeah, it's really not that big of a deal using the camera in auto, right? Like I said, that's how I prefer to work, using the camera, right? Because I'm not a camera guy and I'm fucking lazy. But anyways, that's all I have. Woo! Thanks for watching this video. Like I said, there's the QR codes if you want to help me buy a coffee and to wake my ass up so I can keep making these videos. Really would appreciate it. If not, don't worry about it. It's all good. Still continue to make these videos when I can. Thank you either way. Leave a comment, give it a like and all the good stuff. And give me a question if there's anything in particular you guys want to learn. And I'll make a video out of it. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Take care and peace.